Welcome to A Dose of Feel Good. I'm your host, Whitney Bischoff, and today we are talking about transformed people transform others. You can see full show notes at doseoffeelgood.my.canva.site. Now let's dive into today's episode. Welcome back to another episode of Dose of Feel Good. And I really hope that this week's episode leaves you feeling especially ready to conquer the week and to really leave that impact on those around you through just being kind. And I know lately for me, I have just paid extra special attention to the people around me who are extending that helpful hand. And I think oftentimes we don't really realize the impact of that unless we're at those moments where we're like, I could really use that. But we're often those people for the people around us. And that's exactly what our episode is going to talk about this week. Transformed people transform others. And one of the very first episodes of this podcast was all about the positive ripple effect. And I want to reintroduce that topic here a little bit because that's exactly what we're talking about, just in the terms of what does it mean to transform ourselves? What does it mean to actually be able to extenuate that to the people around us? But I think we first have to recognize that if we don't clean up our wounds, right? If we're walking around in the world where we all have our stuff in our lives that we've faced, if we don't take a second to clean those up, we bleed on those around us. And obviously, from a physical sense, we can understand what that looks like. But in reality, if we don't take some time and really understand that while we're not responsible for maybe what has happened to us, we are responsible for how we respond. And if we don't take the time to clean ourselves up a little bit, we will bleed onto others because those things have a very real impact on us. So when we're talking about the ripple effect, just understanding that when we're talking about transformation, we have to be intentional. We have to be intentional that we want to clean ourselves up so that we're not bleeding onto others, so that we're not letting our junk become everybody else's junk. So if we put in the work, if we heal, grow, when we experience that transformation, the very beautiful part and what we're really talking about here today is that the light, the sparkle that we experience, right? When you hear people say like, I got my spark back, it almost leaves the opposite, that we're leaving this glitter, these marks on other people, that it can be positive. It's this encouragement that once we are able to transform and almost become our true best self, it transforms others in a super positive way. And I know you might be saying like, I hate glitter because there are a lot of folks out there. But whatever that looks like, that light, that positive piece that you just can't escape, that's what we're talking about. When we experience that transformation, it truly does transform others. It has no choice but to have that positive impact. And I think this starts with when we really get down to the nuts and bolts of it, we have to recognize the need for our own transformation. And sometimes that does come through recognizing when someone else has reached their aha moment. Sometimes we might be saying to ourselves, I want to be there, right? I want to be in that place. And it's this paradigm, if you will, that while yes, we do not want to be comparing ourselves to whatever version of somebody else that we see, but we can use it almost from this place of admiration, right? Like, if they can get there, why can't I? And sometimes we need that push, right? That I want my life to get to that point of whatever that perception is of somebody else, and just know that life has more for you. That's really what we're connecting the dots for. If it's looking at somebody else, and it doesn't even have to be a real person, right? Like if there's admiration from a character in a book or movie or TV series, even if they're not real, it helps us kind of see where we would want to be, and that we're not settling, right? That's not what's in store for us. That if we're at a point where I feel like I'm not at the best potential that I have laid out for myself, okay, if someone else is making me realize that, that's okay. Like that's step one, is recognizing that need for whatever gets us there. And then knowing that the transformation process is a process. It doesn't happen overnight. But the beautiful part of that is that we just have to go on that journey and letting the process almost be our guide. That whatever happens along that journey, we're going to experience it. That it's part of the ride, right? We're going to ride the wave, and there are going to be highs, there are going to be lows, but it shows that as we go through that transformation, that other people also go through that, right? That we're not alone in it, and there is so much to learn along that journey, and it ultimately makes us better along the process. And I think the key piece to all of that is that we speak it out. That when there might have been this aha moment where you saw somebody else transform and you're like, all right, now's my point, right? Ultimately, we're only doing that because someone else decided to speak their truth or their experience or XYZ, right? We saw something. And so part of this process is sharing, right? Affirming and believing that transformation in ourselves is possible, that it can and will happen. And we say that to ourselves often, but also we speak it into the universe. We speak it to the people supporting us and going along the journey with us, because when we have humans supporting other humans, one, it makes the process easier, right? We're not supposed to do life alone, but also you never know. That person supporting you might be thinking, I need to do my own transformation, whatever that looks like, right? Physical health, mental health, spiritual, XYZ, all of the above, right? If we're speaking out what we need and bringing people along that journey, our transformation is transforming others. That's the whole point here. And so I think knowing and recognizing that encourages others to also transform and be their best just from coming along the journey with us, from showing that we are flipping that script. We're not bleeding onto others. We're pouring this light onto others. And I think just taking a second to recognize, and I get goosebumps every time I say this phrase, but just imagine the world that we would have if we were all encouraging transformation and uplifting what was possible. Just imagine, right? If we were all supporting each other on that journey, how different things would look. And I truly think that, like, if we were all doing that for each other in multiple spaces, incredible, right? I think it would just be such a different world. And I want to highlight this in a couple of different ways. So first, I feel like recently I've experienced this a lot more of just random people from my past just checking in out of the blue. And I have been very vocal about the recent transformation, whether that's career-wise, whether that's the physical health journey that I'm on. I feel like all of the above. I feel like my entire life right now is in a transformation point, but I know I'm also not meant to do life alone. And so I do social media posts about where I am. I am very vocal, right? And so I've had random people check in and just say, like, they've been thinking about me, or whatever, right? And I think I say that because these are people who we talk once in a blue moon. It's not very often, but I always respond and just let them know like how much I appreciate that. And truly, like I know it encourages me to continue to go on that journey and to share and to know again that I'm not doing it alone. And I might have been that trigger point for them to also maybe experiment within themselves of what transformation looks like. And I think this is incredibly valuable because I've been in some pretty low places, and the wake up call for me was seeing in somebody else like that they've made it, right? They've told a little bit of their story, and they've also experienced the hard things, but they're not doing it alone. And it makes me feel maybe a little less alone as well. And so I think then seeing, boom, there's this transformation, and transformation can happen and is possible. And if it's possible in them, why not me? Right? And so it's almost like this magnet, right? Like when someone else is sharing their transformation, it's this magnet that I can do it. It's this encouragement that I can do it. And I'm not going to lie, it can also be lonely, especially if you have people in your life that aren't ready for that transformation. We do need to set boundaries and share that, again, people bleed. If they have not fixed their own wounds, they will bleed on you. And transformation is hard enough that sometimes we do have to have some hard conversations that if they're not ready to be part of that transformation, eventually that light that you are bringing in, it will transform others. But we want that positive light to be shared and to be transforming as part of the process. And I think the impact of this is that I think sometimes we get stuck in our head a little bit. We often believe that transformation isn't possible until we can see it happen in someone else, especially someone that maybe we really relate to or admire or different pieces like that until we see that it's possible in somebody else, we might give ourselves excuse after excuse of why it might not be possible for us. And it just leaves us in this place of where we're just then not moving forward because we don't even know where to start. And so I think when we get in that headspace and when we're thinking of like, how do I even start this transformation process, even if I'm doing it to want to transform other people, I think just starting with set that critic down, right? Like, let's silence it. It doesn't have a place here, and I'm going to prove it wrong and pull that sass out. And every time that critic comes back down, sit it down. It doesn't have a place here. And I think, again, if that reason for wanting to transform is for everyone else, right? Like, I am somebody, I want to do things to help other people. And if my transformation ultimately is the encouragement to transform other people, that's okay. We're a work in progress. We are, ultimately, we want to be doing this for ourselves. But if that encouragement to start is ultimately to leave that light on other people, that is okay. And I think just this real reminder of the impact of when we choose to transform and knowing that that's going to transform others. I think thinking of where this started, right? If we all were reminded that we had just one person, if we all had just one person that we know we got to our point because of the light and the glitter that they spread, that they were able to pay it forward to. If we had just even one person that was able to do that for us, and then we know that when we transform, we're able to pay that forward to even one person, two beautiful things happen. One, we're all connected in a way, right? There's those links, those positive links that happen. Two, we know that we're doing that for so many more than just one person. We know from our own transformation experience that it was more than one person that had that impact on us. And because we know that, then we know when we go through that transformation process, we're impacting more than even just one person. But even if it's just one person and we're all leaving that positive impact, that light on even one person, just imagine the world that we could see ourselves in and just what a difference that would be. And I don't know about y'all, but that makes me feel real good for the day. So with that, how do we get there? What are our call to action steps this week? So first, just recognizing that transformation is possible. It's possible in every single person. And I think just first realizing that that is our truth and we're going to stand in our truth. The second piece is thinking of who do you admire, who has gone through that process and has really come out strong on the other end, and what can you learn from them? What are pieces that you can be like, I can do that too, or sit down, have a conversation with them. There's a lot of power in learning from somebody else's experience, especially because it's a hard journey a lot of the time. I think the other piece then recognizing is who looks up to you, like who admires the work you're putting in, whether as you've gone on different transformation journeys. You might be in the middle of one now. You might be thinking to yourself, no, I need to go on one. but we've all gone through different experiences. So I think of like who have you taught different lessons to based on your own experiences, and what were they able to learn from you, right? So knowing that you were able to pass things along. And then I think from the last piece, just knowing that we will all have different transformation experiences throughout our life. It's not just a one and done. So hopefully that's not a news flash for y'all. But as we know, we're going to experience those transformation moments. Give yourself permission to go through those, that they're going to be messy. They're also going to be a lot of fun. And give yourself the space to navigate what that looks like and to pay attention, to ride the wave, and then to celebrate that you are very capable of doing and going through all of those things to come out brighter on the other side, and live it out loud, because it's worth celebrating, and you really never know what somebody might need from those lessons that you're learning yourself that they can use in their own life as well. So as we transform ourselves, it really does have an impact on those around us. And I just think that is a really beautiful way to make us feel good this week. And I think that's where we're going to wrap up for the week. So thank you all for joining me for another episode. I hope it leaves you feeling very good. If you really, really loved it, I would love for you to share with a friend or two. Let's really extend that ripple impact as we're talking about and really live it out loud. Otherwise, join us again next week. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you are feeling ready to conquer the week and let your impact ripple out to the world around you. Let's connect on Instagram and Threads at Dose of Feel Good Podcast. If you're loving the podcast, I'd love it if you'd hit that subscribe button and leave a review. Until next time, share your own dose of feel good and never underestimate the power of positivity.